We're in Barcelona for Mobile World Congress 2019. I'm here with Ash Dahod from Altiostar. Ash, great to see you again.
Pleasure, nice to see you again.
So, obviously you've been in the industry for quite a long time now. A lot of people might remember that a few years ago you built up Starent Networks, sold that to Cisco, so you've already seen and been involved in a previous transition in the mobile sector. And now we have 5G coming on, and obviously a lot of talk here at this event about that. How are you seeing 5G progressing now? Are we actually at the start of this big transformation that people have been talking about?
I mean, clearly the mobile industry has gone through two major transformations. The one occurred in 2000 when the network went from essentially voice-centric to supporting voice and data. Now the transformation that is occurring is not only a technological transformation, but also a transformation which is driven by what are the use cases. For example, now data is not just data. Data is depending on what the user is doing, whether it is mobile broadband, fixed wireless access that requires very high bandwidth, or for massive IoT, where you need to support a very large number of endpoints. Or it could be ultra low latency for real-time application. Now the network has to adapt. So 5G is not just that it is massive MIMO or millimeter wave or going from 20 megahertz bandwidth to 800 megahertz bandwidth. It is really transformation of the whole infrastructure, where the infrastructure now has to not evolve, but transform on three different directions. One is total bandwidth supported. Second is the number of devices supported and the level of intelligence. Okay, now the network has to become intelligent so it can serve the user depending on what the user is doing at a particular moment. And that change is going to happen independent of whether the underlying radio is LTE radio or NR radio.
Right.
And that's the 5G to us is not just the underlying radio technology changing, but also what users want to do with the network.
Right.
And then what are the implications of that change of the user behavior.
Okay.
And that's happening.
Right, yes, absolutely. Now the Altiostar name has been around for a while, but just recently it's starting to crop up in relation to next generation network deployments. Why is that happening now in late 2018, early 2019?
Great question. I mean, clearly for us to have a very competitive offering and to succeed in our strategy of creating an open RAN, where the users, the operators have the choice of selecting the best of breed hardware and run the software on it. Number one, we had to develop our software to a level where in features and functions we are competitive with what is currently offered by the incumbents. So that required a tremendous amount of software investment. That required us to have extensive lab and field testing. Tier 1 operator that required us to get commercially deployed to have the credibility that we indeed have a software offering that can provide the same features and functions that is available from the incumbent.
Right.
That was the first challenge. The second challenge was to create an ecosystem of hardware suppliers who complement our software. So we had to create an ecosystem of third-party radio suppliers, so that operators who adopt our open architecture have options as to who is going to be the radio supplier. We had to also then work very closely with Intel. And we had to make sure that the Intel hardware, which is commercially off the shelf available, is suited for what we wanted to do in virtualizing the RAN. It took us a while to develop the software and build this ecosystem.
Right, okay. So that has come to fruition and in quite a public way. So you've just announced not only an investment from Rakuten, the greenfield Japanese operator, but also a deployment there, being involved in part of their network rollout. Can you tell us a little bit about the relationship with Rakuten and that deployment process?
Sure. I mean, for the Rakuten network, we are taking the network, instead of being vertical, where it is custom software running on custom hardware, we are breaking it up and making it horizontal, in the sense that we provide what is equivalent to a baseband or BBU software. And we have open interface northbound and open interface southbound. So we are providing that software layer.
Okay.
And then on top of that, we are running with Cisco DPC. There is Nokia's IMS. This is all public information. We are working with InnoEye's OSS BSS. And similarly, southbound, we have open interfaces where we can work with a variety of radio suppliers. And currently we are working with the Nokia's radio. Now, for our solution to be credible, we had to take all of those pieces, integrate together, and clearly show that it all works before it goes to deployment.
Right.
So that's where we are now. We have started deployment. So our role is really providing this BBU software, taking on the responsibility to make sure that the complete solution works with all the different players providing different components, Intel working with Quanta, providing the servers, us making sure the servers have the capacity to support the number of sectors that Rakuten would like to support. So all the system engineering had to be done, and for us to put it all together and prove it before deployment.
Okay, and Rakuten has also invested in the company. Why has it gone down that route? Is it strengthening the relationship, or they see prospects there as well? Or?
Well, I mean, obviously, anybody making an investment, first it is a financial angle, but in this case, it is a very strategic angle. Rakuten wants to make sure that we have the financial resources to build our team so we can have a competitive offering in 4G and 5G.
Right.
That we have sufficient resources to not only meet the current 4G requirements, but also very immediate 5G requirements. So they very quickly want to go from 4G to 5G. So that network, hopefully say a year from today, will support macros and micros in 4G and 5G, indoor and outdoor. And they want to make sure that we have the resources to deliver on that.
Okay. Now, you mentioned there before about being integrated with the technology from other companies, and obviously the multi-vendor environment is something that all of the operators have been looking for and wanting for years, but it's not so easy to do, or hasn't been up to now. Can you just talk a little bit about that interoperability and what that is like in this kind of more software-oriented architecture?
I mean, the key is to really, we built our software to make sure that we comply with the standards.
Okay.
So it's easy for the operators to put in all the pieces together. For example, we are using Cisco's virtualization environment. The reason it was easy for us to be operating in that environment is because from day one, we built our software. So it is portable. It can be ported into different virtualization environments. Okay. It was easier for us to automate all of the provisioning and commissioning because we built our software with appropriate standard interface to be able to quickly do that. So that's the key. The key is to really build a software platform and make sure that all of the key interfaces are standard-based interfaces.
Right, okay. And you also mentioned there that, especially what you're doing with Rakuten is around the Open RAN or O-RAN structure and architecture. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why that development is important and why it's gained support across the industry?
I mean, clearly the current operators, to support 5G, you really have to build a web scale network. You cannot stay with the current mainframe architecture. To go to web scale, you have to get the best of breed, hardware, software. You need the network to be able to scale in number of end devices and in the amount of software services that are offered. Now, the only way to do that is to have an open architecture, have open interfaces, so that the operator is now able to leverage the innovation velocity of not just one supplier. Now they can leverage the innovation velocity of end suppliers. They're not limited to my innovation velocity.
Right.
They can bring in the innovation velocity of different companies on the hardware front and also on the software front. And that's the mission of vRAN. vRAN is how do we disaggregate everything so that we can have R&D velocity of multiple entities. Could be small entities, large entities, funded by venture capitalists or funded by large corporations. But idea is to increase the innovation velocity by disaggregating.
Okay. So this seems like a vision that obviously Rakuten shares, as the software-based open vision. Is there complete sort of overlap and consistency between your vision and Rakuten's? And is this sort of like a unique understanding so far in the industry?
Well, I mean, we obviously, any operator we work with, we need this vision alignment for them to consider us. So and Rakuten has been the one that has been the most aggressive in having this alignment and moving to commercial deployment. So we are in a similar stage with several other operators. Like for example, we are working with GCI Alaska. The reason they selected us is because there was a complete alignment of the vision.
Okay. So there's obviously more companies coming to the same conclusion and wanting to move ahead. What can we expect to hear during 2019 from Altiostar? Is it going to be more engagement, further technology development, greater support for vRAN, bringing other companies in? What are the next steps?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, our goal is to bring, we pioneered the whole idea of Open RAN. And we have been working on it and creating the ecosystem. Now that all the industry leaders have embraced it, clearly the more companies that participate in it. I mean, when they participate, they should participate in fully open RAN. You can't participate by saying, I'm going to have open interfaces with the OSS, BSS, and no, the interface with the radio is still going to be proprietary. Right. That is not open RAN. Yeah. Open RAN means that all interfaces have to be open. And there has to be complete flexibility for the operator to mix and match the best of breed. And that's where we need to get to this year. Okay. The other thing, obviously, the more operators adopt the Rakuten model of virtualization, multiple players coming to the table to build a complete solution, like Rakuten has done. They put together Intel, Quanta, Nokia, Cisco, us together to create a complete solution. And I think you'll see more of that happening this year. Okay. And more operators adopting this model.
Well, it's certainly an interesting story for us to be following at Light Reading, and we know as well that there's lots of people out there in the industry very interested in this progress as well. So we look forward to carrying on engaging and hearing more as things develop.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.